Hello everyone and a warm welcome. My name is Elisabeth and today we're going to explore how designers and developers are finally bridging the gap. So first, how did I experience that gap? When I started after university as a young IT consultant in my first company, all my colleagues were happily talking about those greenfield projects and me as well, I was eager to join one and see how you could build up everything on this wonderful places they call green fields. And in my imagination, this looked kind of like that. A really nice pony farm. You can build whatever you want, a bit like Minecraft. And in the background, there was a waterfall, but at that time, I didn't know what waterfall means to straight development. I was into that as well, and I was really eager to dig deeper and build something. And I joined my first project, but some years ago had started as a green field, but over time it looked not like a pony farm anymore. It looked like reality. And maybe some of you know that picture. It's the Tower of Babel. It illustrates the story from the Bible where they try to build a tower up to the sky and to the heavens. And during that process, their language got confused, so they couldn't build anymore any longer, and they were stuck in the middle. Maybe that also sounds familiar to you, knowing some IT projects where somehow it felt like you couldn't, the other side, the other people wouldn't understand anymore, and you couldn't continue. You were all stuck in different forms. And if you look at the language, even closer here in our example for designers and developers, then you will see that they're also using different languages, different words. So when a designer talks, the words that he might often use or she would be like personas and the wireframes and the needs of the user and in the sketch file, and we have to use the design thinking process and we have to build a prototype. And when you hear developers talking, it might be more like the HTML and the CSS, and in the new Angular version, there's errors, codes, and requests, and API calls, and oh, if you get a REST condition, that work out. So it's good to understand each other there. But it's not only the language, it's also the perception. We as developers might see us as very scientific, and we see the designers more as a fun, creative people having a bit of a um, final go at the end to make it a bit more beautiful for the user. But also as designers, what I turned out to be now, and some that are unfamiliar to software development might look more on a developer, like someone sitting down there with a screwdriver and doing strange things. And looking at ourselves, we would see us more as designers and as the next Steve Jobs. And that makes also the gap. We have different things on our agenda. We, as designer, are more focused on the screens, perfect look, maybe even on a desire. As developer, we are much more data oriented because we have to deal with the backend and there's a lot of data involved. So that's our partner in crime here. Of course, we want to have it perfectly functional and use the latest technology. So if you come back from a conference, of course, we want to try those things out and see how they work. And here we already see the gap and the different worlds we are living in. And of course, in an IT project, we have to bridge it. So what are we going to do? We do document. And then we prepare that document, and as the gap is quite deep, we throw high. And that's what we do. And hopefully reach the other side. And someone on the other side will read it. But of course, the bandwidth of a PDF is quite limited, what it can transfer in information. Of course, you might have some pictures, some screens, but it's quite hard to describe everything so perfectly that the other one can understand. And if you do, it might be 90 pages. It's quite hard to first read 90 pages. and then start developing. So maybe you only look at some of the screens and then you will start. And then in the end, the software is not what the designer intended, what the developer wants. And we have to keep that in mind. Let's now look for a better way, because normally those PDFs end up like that, and then someone has to crawl over it. It's always kind of a mess. It doesn't lead to neither happy project leads nor happy users. So let's take another approach, look at it from a different angle, and see what we can do and change there. So first of all, we can change the perception. So before we lived in different worlds, but if we now come together, we form one group, maybe one hiking group. Let's take that as a metaphor for now. And we have a shared vision. We want to go somewhere together. We don't want to have the perfect design and something perfect on the other side, but we have one vision. We hopefully focus on the user, someone who has a benefit from our work. It shouldn't be just art in itself. It should have need, fulfill a need, and be useful. So we want to rise to great heights together and as a group. And of course, if we have that big vision to reach the top, it's not a straight path, except we are able to fly. But even then, weather conditioning is sure that anybody could fly there. So we have to find a way, and that's our first challenge, to find the way how to get up to the top. Of course, we first prepare ourselves, we pack. What do we pack? Of course, we don't pack for a nice sunny beach. We pack for rough conditions. We pack what we need in order to go there. Our shoes might be much better protected for feet. We might have to take something warm. We need to have a map, need to see our direction, have some tools with us, and a good backpack we can carry along the way. And talking about the way, we need to find the right way up to the top. So we have to have some indication if we are going on the right path. That might be some user testing where we see, are we already going close to what we want to achieve? Are we in the right direction? There could also be some measurements. Maybe you're already in a setting where you can measure, for example, conversion rate, or you have other ways to measure if you're going closer to the goal. And you need to make sure that if you're taking the wrong path, you should quite easily be able to figure out that that's not the right way. You shouldn't go miles and miles and miles and then figure out it's a dead end. You have to go back all the way. So instead, when you choose your path as you do for hiking, you would first look, what's the next step? You would look up, see if that's the right direction you are going, and see if you will reach the top by going there. So have those three different viewports when you hike, and you have that also in IT project. So you have to see what's the next step. Maybe that's what you communicate in the daily. What's my next step? You have maybe sprints where you communicate, okay, that's what we want to try out this time. We want to try that way, see where it leads, and when it leads in the right direction, we continue there. If not, we go back. And we want to see the big picture, the milestones, where we getting closer to the top. And during that way, it's not only one of us who does that, it's the whole team all the time doing that and sharing our work in progress. Review, where are we? Where did we want to go? What do you think of that way? Is it a good way? Is it much too straight? Maybe too much height at once? Might it be too exhausting? Is it better to take another round? Learn from each other, share your thoughts, share where you're standing, and be ready to quite easily share and use the collaborative power you have in the team. If only one brain is thinking, there are like 4 others idle, and that's quite bad for the outcome. So you need to make sure that we are all on the same page here as well. And of course, if we take that more in a process perspective, it's a collective process where we have that hypothesis maybe for one sprint. This is the right way. Let's go there. Let's experiment. Let's see if it brings us where we would like to go, and then see in our analysis, was it really that? Can we confirm the hypothesis, or do we have to change, adjust? And as you can see here as well, focus on your users, on your goal, on the vision you have. Are you going close to that? Are you also bridging the gap towards your users here? And when you talk to each other, of course, when you consider where we come from a shared understanding while sitting together, maybe sharing dinner here, and we wouldn't describe something like in that form that we often use that might be useful for some cases, but for sharing something, even here, what we would more do is describe the tiger. And that would make it very vivid. And we would all share also where we would like to, what we would like to avoid. And that is very powerful. If you take, for example, the developers wants to usability testing and they see the suffering of the user with the software or the current solution, that's a much higher motivation than just transforming a PDF into something that runs on a machine. That's completely different. And then we can create that shared understanding and we can talk to each other and have that basis for the discussion and involve everybody, because as developer you're perfectly capable of design questions, considerations, and also the other way around, even if it's not like your hometown, you know some of the streets and you know and can learn the basics. And that's very good to have that shared understanding. That's for the first part. Now we would like to take a closer look at the tools and what you can or concretely do to get from the design to a good development and to a good result. So what most companies do have is a style guide. What is the colors? How does a title look like? How is a button? And you might describe the colors, stuff like that. That might be quite static somewhere. And as it's quite static somewhere, it does make sure that development is based upon it. So we can either get closer, like already writing the CSS, providing that makes it much easier to use. We could even provide a JavaScript for it that will also make it much easier to get along and already understand also the interaction. But it's quite hard often to describe in a style guide. You could also provide that as well. And what you can do even further there is having that as a living style guide. So it's already code and you can dig into it and explore. So it's documentation combined with the real components that also gets you one step closer. And there are a lot of generators for that. So here is a very good collection, depending on what programming languages, frameworks, and tools you're using. Here's a very good list of generators that you can use or build upon. And why should you do that? Because if you do that, if you have a living style guide and your designer wants to point out something, it's much easier for the developer to understand what should be changed and where, and also for the developer to indicate the implications. So to say, we can change that over here, but you know, we reuse all the buttons, we don't do them each time new. So if you change it here, it will be changed everywhere. And you can have a discussion and a collaboration, and that what makes it really useful. Also helps everybody to reuse what's already there and use it as a toolbox, and don't have that discrepancy between what it should be and what reality is like, and then it's always hard because then you have to do a lot of first you have to build an understanding and then bridge all the little gaps between each component, and it's something we would like to have. Building upon that, what I already said with the reusing things, people came up with design system, and here a list of many design systems. So the basic idea is modularity. As you can see here as well, it's not all built into one thing. It's built up of different things that you can reuse in different ways. You don't have to always take all of them with you. Maybe you're not staying overnight, then you don't need everything you see here. And that makes it quite easy and flexible. And that's what you can also do with your components. You can have very basic ones like you see here. They're called atoms. You can build up molecules out of it, organisms, molecules, and then whole templates. and build your concrete pages out of it. Let's look at that once again. You have your atoms, so you can't break them down anymore, and then you form them and can reuse them in different parts, maybe in the header and in the footer again, and then you have templates and pages. And recommending one is where we build into that atomic principle. You don't have to do that. Atomic isn't the only way to do it, but having that understanding of building up huge things out of components will bring you very far and make you able to build component libraries with a lot of functionality and design already built in. You will save a lot of time. And giving an overview, what design systems you have your variables we saw, you have the examples that makes up the style guide, then you add up the code and you have a component library, and then if you already collaborate about it, that's the design system where it's really built in the system of your company, of your collaboration with your teams. And then we call it a single source of truth because we can both point at it and that one will always be true. It can't be that the designer has one truth and the developer has another truth, because we're on the same platform, on the same basis. So looking at now designers and developers, we were able to bridge that gap, and that will make us happy, and also the project lead and the user. And now we have a common foundation, even if it's a hill, we can now build something great together. Now you might wonder, if you're a big company, okay, this is nice, one foundation, but how can we build up different cities, maybe in different places, different surroundings? And also there, a design system will help you very much, because you want that look and feel everywhere, but you can't not only like plug it in. It might have a framework it's based on, like we saw before in the JavaScript code, that might not be something everybody can use. But still, you have the design system and the modularity, and still use it completely. Some may take the CSS because maybe the design system is an Angular, some use React, and they will provide their own React version of it. That's totally fine. And also some might be building an internal tool, and for them it's also important that it completely integrates all the design system elements. They might only use a few and use it as required. So then you're able, even in a huge company, to have one central point that is providing for all the others. The others can also contribute to it. And if you want to take that even one step further, Amazon built something really helpful, the style dictionary. So we have a little look here at the video.
Hi, I'm Charles, and I'd like to show you what Style Dictionary can do for you.
Sorry. And we will have a little look here. It's all in bluish. We have blue colors here, different apps. There's different code behind. Here we have a style guide with the brand colors, and they're primarily blue. And we also specify the font sizes here. And here's the real magic behind all of it. There is a JSON specifying those values. Now comes the magic, or the auto magic. If you change it here and deploy it, it will change everywhere. So that's very handy as a designer, because now I can change my assets very easily. You also call those design tokens. So I can change them. I don't have to bother anyone. And I can work independently and change here. And it will then change everywhere, as you will see here. Stop, restart, taking the new JSON file in, and then everyone uses the same design tokens, and you don't have any inconsistency, and you don't have to write 5 different tickets to just change some color or some font. Have it built in everywhere. So that can be very useful for your project, if that's possible and if you need it. Apart from that, what you could do as well, and what you always should do, especially when you first initially hand over a new concept, to make sure that all your ideas, also the research, the findings, everything that led you to this concept will be involved and will be provided. Talking about that makes it much easier to give the understanding and also easily answer the first question and make sure the other one really understood what it was all about, why it's like that, and why it's important, and how the user will interact with it, and what are the different parts. And also, as a designer, it's not about only your screen, it's also about thinking of the variety that will come into place when it starts to be dynamic. So you'll have to consider if text is too long or too small, what will happen in that case if there are too many elements, more than expected. Maybe your layout worked fine with 4 cards, but what if there are hundreds of cards? Will it scroll? Will it lazy load? Will it have a pagination? Things like that you have to consider up front, and it's good to have a checklist for that. Also for options, what if there is an error, if the user mistypes something or does something unexpected? What is in success case? Does he get any feedback about that as well? What is if there is a timeout on the back end? So consider that up front, what should happen in that cases. And then also be very involved in the requirements because your design has also requirements when it needs to be built in. So it's good to have a template for that as well and putting in all the criteria, all the assets, everything the developer needs to know to really make it great in the end. And also put in your contact information so it makes it very easy to reach out to you in case there are any questions. We will later see also how a tool can support you there, but being part of writing the tickets for development is very crucial to make sure that your designs and your good ideas from the design will be implemented. And here are also some tools. Let's look at one of the videos here to see one of it. Here it's Zeppelin, and on the right side you can already see all the information as a developer that you might need about sizes, colors, fonts. You already have a CSS example of it, so that makes it much easier to transform a layout into code. Also, you have some general rules here, so that helps you a lot. On the left, you also see other tools like InVision, Avocado, or Sketchmailer. So there is a lot outside there that you can use that will help you in that regard. And what's important point here last, take a language course, put yourself in the shoes of the other one, and walk them with them for a day, for a sprint, learn how they're doing things, sharing, and also get to know some of the tools, some of the methods they're using. So as a designer, it's very good to know a bit about HTML and CSS, maybe do an online class there to understand, to also be able to interact and manipulate the CSS on your own to try out things so you can try before you hand it over and make sure that it really is able to be implemented in the. And as a developer, feel free to be part of the design thinking process, be early involved, show your interest, and get to know who the users are because you are also building it for them. So knowing them will help you a lot for some decisions you have to take during the process and for considering and talking about it. And also everybody is able of paper prototyping, just taking paper and pen and paint down the interface and explore how that could work. And also that makes it much easier for you to share your ideas with the designer because it's in the right format they will understand. And then you can build a shared understanding over that and then make sure that that's also something that has the right interaction that you can build. And when you've done all that, or at least some part of it, I hope that they and you will work together happily. Thank you. And with thank you, I also would like to thank the team of Interface Back. They make it possible that I give this talk. So thanks to them and thanks to their support and feedback. And if you would like to have the slides, feel free to reach out. They're also online. And I would really be interested now in your questions, what is your current challenge, just reach out, and would really like to discuss that with you. Thank you.